What problems are troubling you? What's frustrating you, bothering you, worrying you? Want solutions? Want answers? Welcome to Here We Come to Save the Day, hosted by David Adelson. This podcast is dedicated to solving everyday and global problems in an uplifting, fun, enjoyable way. There is a solution to whatever's troubling you. Ask your questions, and we'll do our best to give you practical, useful, workable solutions you can use starting today. Join us now with David's special guest experts who will share their own experiences, life lessons, and practical strategies for creating the life you long for. Start living your best life today, right now, with David Adelson and Friends.
We're going to start today's episode of Here We Come to Save the Day with just a moment of centering and getting our thoughts about what's the intention of today's episode. And we do this before pretty much every episode, but we usually don't do it during the episode. But we want you to know how important it is just to kind of have the intention, call on your higher self, call on your soul or your oversoul, call on God, call on the soul of everyone involved in a meeting, and just state the intention that we want the best outcome, the highest and best, most useful, most practical, most fulfilling outcome for all involved in a loving, sweet, harmonious way. And so we ask that for this and for every podcast that we do. We just want to be centered in wholeness and move from there. So we're just going to do that for a minute, and we're going to do that in just a couple seconds of silence. Good. Thank you for that. We won't do it in all the podcasts, but we just wanted to do it in one. I especially wanted to do. First, I'm going to tell you what we're going to solve today. Today, we're going to tell you how to get to peace and prosperity in spite of whatever appears to be going on in the world. And with me is my special guest, Michelle Humphrey, who is a dear, dear friend. And we'll tell you more about her in a couple minutes. But Michelle, in a nutshell, can you just give us 2 or 3 quick points that we'll expand on more about how people can get to peace and prosperity? Then we'll talk a little bit about who you are and why I adore you so, and I'm so happy and grateful that you're on the show. And then we'll go into more detail about how people and the practical steps people can do. So just in a nutshell, what are your short points?
Well, the short points is you got to look at what's driving your energy. And most people, it's fear that is driving their energy, driving their decisions. And we're going to definitely talk about and dive into some key points of how peace and solutions can be driving what's the deeper part of what's going on inside of you. And regardless, and I'll give you some key specific takeaways of, regardless of your industry, you really get to be thriving, regardless of what's going on, and as you said, in the outer world. So let's have fun talking about that for sure.
Okay, so yes, and we're going to get into that. We're going to get some details about things. I know you're going to talk about how to stay at peace. We know you're going to talk about how to get to prosperity, again, regardless of what's going on. And I know you want to mention why it's important not to get caught up in whatever is going on and how to not get caught up. I know these are things we want to cover during this time, but I met Michelle at the Thought Leaders Business Summit, a little over a year ago, and was incredibly taken by her intelligence and her wit and her charm and her just the quality of her life, because here is a woman who really lives what she preaches. She's been a coach for more than 20 years, and she's helped a lot of people in a lot of ways. And I'm going to let you get to specifics because, I just know you so well personally that I don't care about the specifics, but I know a lot of people do. I know that, when I'm coming out of the Apple store just before Christmas and I run into you and your family, that my heart just expands and I'm so delighted to see you. But these people may want a few more, specifics about what you did. I know you're a best-selling author. I know you've created a number of incredibly wonderful program. So why don't you take just a minute and give us a little bit about what you feel are the highlights that will make these people want to come and worship? No, just come, come and enjoy what you're so kindly sharing with all of us.
Oh, thank you, David. I feel the same way about you. So, through the years, I've just gotten known as the business miracle worker. And specifically, it's because I can look at a business. I've been doing this for 20 years, so I've gotten really good at it, regardless of what it is that they have going on, the lack, the limitations, where they're stuck. I can look at something and say, oh my goodness, we can shift this, this, and this, and find ways that I can double and even triple business revenue within that first year of coming in. And many of my clients stay with me, not just that first year, but 2, 3, 4, and 5 years, because we keep growing, we keep expanding, we keep improving their business model. And I just have done this for so long that I've created an unconscious competence around it. So yeah, even in, what we want to talk about today, peace and prosperity, regardless of what's going on in the outer world, it's possible. And I'm here to prove we can live it.
So perfect. Thank you for that. There will be links to your website and anything that you want to share with the people in the show notes below. So if you're driving and listening to this, just go to the webpage when you get home and we will tell you all the things. Okay, I want to do this a little different than I normally do this. I know we have limited time because you have to go. So what I'd like to do is let's take 5 minutes and tell them in an overview nutshell what you feel is the most important takeaway from this show, and then let's go to the next most important and the next most important. So do you want to just go in the order of stay, peace, how to get prosperity, why it's important, or do you have something else jumping out at you?
No, and just to really jump in, I've just seen this in so many times in history where, people look at the outer world, whether it's what's going on in the world or what's going on in their own personal lives, and they they use that really as a distraction. They use this as almost an excuse to not to stay focused on where it is that they really want to go. So one of the number one things that I do with every single one of my business clients is we first get them really clear on what I call their true purpose. Like, why are they really put on the planet, right? Yeah, it's your business and you want to grow and, make more money, but we got to get even deeper than that. So I'm here to encourage people that even if you don't know what your true purpose is, that it's bigger than probably what you think it is. And I want to share that when your purpose is bigger than your problems, when your purpose is bigger than outer world circumstances, you aren't moved and swayed like the average person. You're not so caught up, you're not so distracted. So as an example of like what my true purpose is I've really claimed, and I've known this for decades, that I'm a leader of light and truth. And as I really claim that I'm a leader of light and truth, I'm meant to be this enlightened world healer. For me, my language is I'm one with God, right? And that energy gloriously guides me, and it leads me, and it shows me, and it directs me to live my life. And so when stuff happens within my business or with my personal life or whatever, it's this, you come back to this true purpose of who you really are. And part of what helps you to keep coming back is there's the vision, like who you are. And the second part is you're driven by a vision and faith. So that vision and faith is, the end result, the end destination, and you don't get caught up in, the detours of life, right? And what's going on. And when your vision and faith coupled with that true purpose of who you are, that identity, it keeps you grounded. It keeps you solid in where you're going. And vision, I want people to think of it as you can remember your future. You can see beyond what is. And even though, big things, depending on when people are listening to this, like, my goodness, we're going through a pandemic with a coronavirus. And it's like, I'm watching my business clients who are so solid, the ones that I've worked with, in who they are, their vision, and there's faith to get them there. And I'm coaching with skills and specific things to do each week and each month. they're not getting as caught up, even if some of their industries are being radically affected, right? Like I personally am in an industry, we have 3 companies, right? One, of course, is coaching, but another one is we run luxury vacation rentals. Well, practically overnight, that business changed radically, right? We had over $300,000 of bookings that were lost in the first week alone when they started this whole self-quarantining. But how do you pivot? How do you transform? How do you navigate through this? Is that you are wealthy, that you are abundant, the end result and the goals and the visions of the business for your life. And because of that, there's ways to create solutions. Just as a little example, like all of a sudden, instead of just focusing on the vacations and people getting away for retreats and conferences, which were all canceled, as you know, all of a sudden the marketing messages go to self-quarantine in beautiful Arizona, right? Here's what's great. There's so many people that don't want to self-quarantine in cold states, and they don't want to quarantine in their current home for whatever reason. It's too small. It's not conducive to what they want. There's not enough room. So we are renting out many of our houses. We have 24 houses, right? For 2 and 3 weeks at a time. We even have booked out several of the houses they're going to stay there the whole month. So there's always ways to find solutions, even though your brain at times can say, well, what am I going to do? And how am I going to manage through this? And one of the key parts to living in the prosperous energies is you're not going to first get stuck on like, well, how am I going to do this? How is this going to work out? You got to get back to what I just said with this vision. You got to have your vision. You got to have your faith of what's driving it. And when you connect with, again, who you really are, and you're seeing beyond current circumstances, the how presents itself.
Here's something that I want to bring out because, in the beginning we talked about, in spite of what is apparently going on in the world, and we want to point out that everybody sees the world differently, and that we all know from physics that there are different levels of the world. So let's think about those great leaders or saints or miracle workers throughout time. And the reason that they could do the miracles is because they saw something as possible that everyone else didn't see as possible. They saw the circumstances outside of them different from what everyone else saw. Everybody else said, no, you can't build a bridge here. No, you can't release the wild animals. No, you can't. We look at Gandhi. You can't take a country and, overthrow Great Britain's rule. But those who have a clear vision, as Michelle is talking about, of who they are, of what their purpose is, and when they see the fulfillment of that purpose, when they remember that and make that their anchor, make that their ground zero, make that their point of who they are, then we start to see the world automatically in terms of automatically we see the tools and the events and the circumstances that allow us to move forward to fulfill that. So it's as if we just, when we're really centered in it, it's as if we don't see the problem that other people see, but rather we see the opportunities or the gifts that are being presented to help us. And I want to go on to get to how to get to prosperity, but before that, I just want to remind people that the first belief that everyone should have is that God and the angels and the universe is for you. Regardless of what your experience has been, it's not so much your experience, but your interpretation of experiences. If you go back and think maybe you fell down here or you got hurt here to protect you from not getting hurt later on. If we start looking at our life from the idea of we were being protected, we were being trained, we were being healed, if we look at the perspective that God and the universe and the different powers that be are for us, and we anchor in what Michelle is talking about, our vision of who we are, what our soul is here to do, it's a very different world.
Yes. Yeah, it definitely is. I'd actually broken it up into, just to summarize, the really get to peace part is one, it is that true purpose, that true identity of who you are and why you're put on that planet, right? And if you don't know that, what a great time to start asking what those questions are, right? Because it's not here to suffer. You're not here to be limited. You're meant to be light, love, and limitless, as I always phrase it. Second is, what is that vision? What is that vision that lights you up, that expands you, that is knowing, like a divine destiny deep inside, and you couple that with faith, and faith is that knowingness that you were meant to do something bigger than, just run a business, or bigger than just kind of survive, right, your life. It's got to be something that it's a life vision. Third, I would phrase it as exactly what you were saying, David. Like, God's still in charge here. God, there's something bigger that is, you're right, is conspiring to help us, to guide us, support us through everything. So to always know that, regardless of what's going on in the outer world. And four, I'm going to say, you got to look for the blessings. You got to look for the miracles. Exactly what you're saying, David. Like, it's all a perception, right? Why can the same event be happening to two different people? One person saying, you know what, this is a miracle. This is a blessing. This is one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me, to help me to step into my truth and my destiny. And the other person's going, this is a nightmare, right? Like, how is that possible? It's because it's that perception. And I'll say this, I learned this many years ago. Albert Einstein was the one who said it. There's only two ways that you can live your life. One is though nothing is a miracle, and the other is though everything is a miracle. And many, many years ago, a couple decades ago now, I've decided that, you know what, everything is here as a miracle. Everything is working together for my greater good, even if at first I don't see it, right? Like, I stay with it until I sense the blessing. I sense what's the greatness about it. So yeah.
Good. I really want to touch on a phrase that you use, which you used a lot in our conversations, and I absolutely love it, is this idea of what lights you up. And
Yeah.
what lights you up, what excites you. The what if you could do, what if all shackles and restrictions and propaganda and you can and you can't, what if all of that disappears and you get to do what's truly in your heart, what's truly in your soul? What if somebody comes and says, you have permission to do whatever it is in your heart that you really, truly want to do? What is that? And when we think about that, and we think, and so many people, when you say, what do you want? They say they don't know what they want because they've never been given permission to go that deep and to find it, and then to allow themselves to express that because of the constraints of society. We're taught, I use this a lot, we're taught at a very early age that a really basic function of simply going to the bathroom, you have to ask permission for. You have to raise your hand. You have to embarrass yourself in front of the whole school or the classroom, way back when you're in kindergarten and first grade and everything, and you have learned to give away your power. But we're going to say, what if, and what's going on in the world right now is the re-empowerment of every individual in the human race, which will lead to a great human race. But what is if you really could do what you truly wanted to do, what you've not even allowed yourself to dream of? That's what's going to light you up. And if you can get there, this is what Michelle is talking about. This is the purpose, that if you can allow yourself to do this, this is hugely empowering. And then every step that you do anchored in that, you do feel at peace because you know, I'm doing what I'm here to do. I'm doing what the individual me is here to do. Not anyway.
Yes. And I just really want to elaborate on this exact point. Like I said, for 20 years being a business coach, and when, CEOs bring me in, and what they're telling me is, like, we don't know how to grow our company. We don't know how to get ourselves out of this mess that we're in. And I'm here to tell you, that's what most people are doing. They're focusing on a how question. And I personally call that the how hell hole, right? And you can get stuck there. And one of the first things that I do with people, right, CEOs specifically, as I work with them is, what is it that lights you up, right? Like, I've got to get deep inside of them to wake up something that has been so buried for so long, right? And some of them are going, I don't even know what that is. Like they're so bombarded by the pressures and the stresses and the overwhelms and the grind of it all. And they forgot that light dream, that spirit, that purpose that was put inside of them. So first and foremost, I'm about bringing the dream back up, and some of them, they're not really even sure what it is. And so I go through various different processes to create some clarity and help to awaken that. And here's the one part to emphasize is when you're living in a have to or a need to or a should or a supposed to, which is what most people have built their lives on. And the opposite is, not that grind, but you are being called to do something. You are doing it because it, as we keep saying, it lights you up, it expands you, you are inspired, it comes from deep inside of you. That gives you energy. And I want you to get that also from those, you get to do it, you love to do it, you're meant to do it energies. New ideas come to you, new visions that you didn't even think were possible. Now you're going, oh my goodness, that there's got to be a way. And you become an inventor. You become someone who is meant for greatness. And exactly what you were saying earlier, like even Gandhi, if you go back to his life, he had no traditional ways of defeating the Roman Empire. Like he was a skinny, scrawny man who had no weapons, no tanks, no military, right? But here's this man who was so driven by the vision and his power and his faith and his knowingness. And it was, transforming millions and hundreds and millions of people's perceptions into who they were and waking them up and seeing that, you know what, we can be free. We can be who we were put on this planet to be. And that's where we all got to start, right? You get to lead your own business. You get to be the creator of your own life, and you get to have a life that's filled with love and joy and peace and happiness and health and abundance and living alive, a really alive life versus, kind of walking through it half numb, which is a large majority of the people right now.
Yeah, I just want to mention that it was actually the British Empire, not the Roman Empire.
Oh, okay.
But nevertheless, I totally get your point. And that's exactly the point. You don't have to tell a little kid, a real little kid, you don't have to tell them how to have fun. They already know how to have fun.
That's right.
They unlearn it. So, and this is what we're talking about, getting to that core of you whereby you know what you will know what you need to do. You will know, once you're in that center, once you're at peace with what you're here to do and who you are, then automatically the solutions start finding themselves, just as if you just say to a kid, go out and play. They know how to go out and play. They don't have to figure it out. A plant doesn't have to figure out how to grow. Okay. When you're at that state within, then miracles start to happen, because they seem like miracles, because before you're from that centered place, you can't figure it out. But from that centered place, you can see what needs to be done so clearly. And then it's easy to do.
Yes. And I just want to add, what allows so many people to get there is you've got to take the focus off of you, right? When you can look beyond your needs, your problems, your issues, right? And you're thinking bigger than you. I'm all about what I call, David, the triple win. It's got to be a win for you, but it's also got to be a win for others. And it's got to be a win for the planet. When you can find solutions that benefit the planet, that create that triple win, you open up to think outside of the box, right? Again, we've got to get people to understand you've got to get out of this hellhole, because if you're figuring out the solution with your vision, or you're figuring out like how your vision's going to happen and you can actually come to it, you're thinking too small. It's got to go bigger than that. You've got to get inspired. I like to kind of call it, you got to bring the spirit into it. And when you bring the spirit into it, it wakes you up, it excites you, it lights you up. And then there's this, you'll be guided to the how, you'll be guided to the next step. You might not even see the whole how and the plan, but you know the next step that you're guided to take. And from there, there's momentum, there's an anointing, there's a energy that propels you forward into your greatness.
Yeah, and on that note, for if people go to peaceandharmonydownload.com/resources, we have a clearing, which I actually did at the Thought Leaders Business Summit, which is to help you realign to what your purpose is, which you knew when you were young, before you learned what the world expected of you, when you knew that tooth fairy and superpowers were real. And you want to get to that clearing. And I know Michelle has some tools that I think she'll tell you a little bit about also, but that's a great place to start for how to recenter yourself, how to get to what your true goal and what you're here to do. And it's not about you, even if it is about you, even if it's about living your fullest life. It's to do so in the name of God, to do so in the name of uplifting your fellow humans. It's always about, it's about being that most glorious flower in the garden that you can be, and automatically enriching the rest of the garden. And you know, in case you haven't gotten it by now, you are not here to create a stable economy. God, truth be told, stable economy is it's just that distraction. It's not, we're not saying it's a bad thing, but to make that the primary purpose is a total faux pas. We'll just say it's a faux pas. Anyway, good. Let's talk about a little bit, if you don't mind, let's talk about a little bit of, I mean, we've covered it extensively. How to get to prosperity is by knowing this point, and then automatically the next steps come. Was there anything else you wanted to bring up on that, Michelle?
Yeah, and I will. We're talking about some resources here, whereas I love, and I was there to receive that clearing, which was spectacular. And if people need like a daily focus, like something that they can fill up their mind with, they can go to michellehumphrey.com/peace and prosperity, and they're daily little lessons or daily focuses to help you to open up to it. And they're the teachings from what's called effortless prosperity. And sometimes when people think of prosperity, the word effortless doesn't go hand in hand with it. And I'll be the first to tell you, over 2 decades ago, when I was introduced to this way of living, creating effortless prosperity, I didn't think those 2 words went together, but I'm here to tell you they really do. And I'll tell like this really brief little story that so deepened it. I just started like these lessons of effortless prosperity, and I was working on a very large business deal. And to save the drama, the short of it is, not only did the business fail, it sent us $858,000 into debt. And I didn't understand how to navigate my way through that. So for months, 9 months or so, I got so stressed out. I got so overwhelmed because I got stuck in this how hellhole, right? And I couldn't figure out the how. It was a bigger number than me. I'd never earned that much money. My best year at that point was $150,000 a year. And I'm like, how do I, turn around an $858,000 debt, start making money? It's like my life, I felt like, was falling apart. But here's the solution to prosperity. Here's the solution to really anything: is there's the current circumstances, but we have the ability as humans to remember the future, as I like to phrase it, to really see the future that we are wanting and destined to be and step into. And I started learning this through these effortless prosperity beliefs, that my future was abundant. My future, I was meant to be rich and wealthy, and to have the money to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it, because I felt that deep inside of me. I felt like I wasn't put on this planet to suffer, to struggle. And as I connected with that, and I'm not here to sugarcoat this really took me weeks and actually a couple months to deepen into my consciousness, to accept it, to believe it, to allow myself to touch my future in a way that I was rich, I was prosperous, I was abundant, I was wealthy, that this debt was paid off for, that again, I was incredibly rich and abundant with money. And I kept focusing on this, using the lessons of this effortless prosperity concept, which is that michellehumphrey.com, Peace and Prosperity. And here's what happened, David. I got so connected to how wealthy I am. I got so connected to the truth, that vision, that true purpose identity, that even though I was in this crazy amount of debt, even though back then bill collectors were calling, we were in just crazy financial ruin almost. But I got inside of me, not the outer world. The outer world was a mess. The inner world, though, inside of me was so connected to my wealth and, again, riches and prosperity that like I wasn't affected by the outer world. And I started to have ideas and visions that, oh my gosh, not only is this debt going to get paid off, so really, here's what happened. It was the faith of seeing that future, remembering that future, that I got so connected that it didn't happen overnight, but within 4.5 months, we unlogically found an investor who came in, took over the company, who we sold off all this product because most of that debt was like a business failure. We sold off the company, we sold off the products. And that year, not only did we get out of debt, we went on to make over $400,000. And it's grown since then. And here's the point. Even if you're struggling, even if you're not in an industry, it looks like it's thriving, stop focusing on the how. Start getting connected to what's deep inside of you, what lights you up, what is that your true purpose, that vision why you were put on this planet. Know that God is in charge. You're looking for these shifts to see yourself the way that you want, and we got to start getting you to step into that, to claim that, to know that, to breathe from it, and you will be guided. You will be guided to solutions. You will be guided to the next step. And as you, if you will, refuse to get caught up in current circumstances or even your history, that your future can be so bright. And it's more important, I believe, than ever, because as the consciousness of this planet is going up, there are more and more leaders who are stepping into this. And I'm just calling you to know that it's an inside job. It's not being concerned with what's going on in the outer world. You've got to go deep inside and really say, you know what? What's deep in me? And as you own that and you allow that to come out to the surface and you welcome that and you celebrate that, you're going to step into being one of the leaders that the world really does need.
I've heard that story before. I love that story. I think we should put that story at the top of, the show when we talk about you. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I love about it, Michelle, is the amount of money for most people that you're talking about is so staggering, $800,000+, and yet you turned it around in literally months and ended up making, again, a significant profit that year. And I'm sure while you were going through it, you weren't necessarily happy and excited, but the end result is that you are a living example of the very principles that you talk about. And that's huge. So many people settle for, again, something less than what they could be. And Michelle and I are here to tell you today that dream big,
Yes.
For most people, even the idea of creating a business of that size can be overwhelming or frightening. And we're going to tell you that just jump, do what you
Yes.
need to, follow your heart. Don't worry about the how. In fact, one of the 5 rules that we have right now is that if you try to figure it out, you're going to get in the way, and that's a problem. There's some other references we'll put in the thing. There's a video that we have that's free that describes all this. But the big thing is, I think this is a great story because it's so inspiring, and it's just, if you were $20,000, everybody can get 20, but it was such a big amount, and it was such a big turnaround, and it was in such a short time relative, and I just think that's incredibly inspiring, and I love you dearly. I wouldn't wish it on you, but I'm kind of glad and impressed that you went through it, because you showed the rest of us just what's possible.
It's so possible. And you know what? I'll say the same thing. I don't need to go through that again, but I'm thrilled that I went through it because it grew me, it expanded me. And I want to emphasize to the listeners, David, because I would not have thought this in the beginning. It's easier to think bigger than it is to think smaller, right? If I was $20,000 in debt, or maybe even $40,000 or $50,000 in debt, I would have found a solution, right? Like I would have taken control and put out like the scheduled little payment plan, and I probably would have, worked the solution and been in control. The problem with $858,000 was it was bigger than I was. My best plan back then was, oh my God, maybe I can work for the next 10 years, live off I was engaged to be married. This all happened 2 months before my wedding on top of it. But I was engaged to be married. I'm like, we'll live off my husband's, salary. And for the next 10 years, every dime that I make, is just going to go for it, paying off this $858,000 debt. And you know what? That broke my heart. I hated that. I was like, God, I'm not going to make it. Like that's just going to feel like it's going to ruin my life. It felt like this giant black cloud. And so when I kept surrendering to God, and there's got to be another way, and you've got to help me to find another way. And like, why did this happen? Like, I don't think you put me on this planet to be miserable. And what is it? And then I met a mentor who was helping me to get really wealthy and prosperous, and realize, like, suppose this isn't even a lot of money, right? And I'm like, oh my God, what do you mean it's not a lot of money? It's a ridiculous amount of money. It's killing me, is what I was saying. But I got so much bigger in my mind. And it was like, well, suppose it wasn't a lot of money. I'm like, well, I'd have to be making $1 million, And then I'm like, all right, no, I'd have to be making $10 million to think like maybe this wasn't so much money, right? And I just kept holding in my mind, like I was a multimillionaire and I was so rich and so prosperous, and money just flowed to me, and I got so wealthy on the inside, right? And way before we've ever created multi-millions, this debt, this energy was in my mind, like, oh, this was here to bless me. No wonder God had to give me this $858,000 debt, because how am I ever going to make millions if I think 858,000 is so much money? And I was just like thanking God and thanking the universe for this debt. And I welcomed it, and I was getting giddy about it. And I was just like, this is going to make one of the greatest turnaround stories of my life. And it has. Right. And I'll be the first to tell you, even moving through this coronavirus and this pandemic, and I'll be honest, I had my emotions and it felt overwhelming. And I felt like at one point the world was falling apart. But then through meditation, God gave me, no, the world is falling together. It's coming together. This is going to be one of the greatest experiences of your life. And to embrace it and to welcome it and to ask for my guidance and what you're going to do to step up and create that triple win and create more solutions for more people, and honestly come out thriving, make more money than you've ever made, get healthier than you've ever gotten, right? And be happier than you've ever been. That's where I believe we can all step into if we allow it, if we shift our perceptions, if we really get to remembering, again, I'll recap them before we wrap up, this true purpose of who you really are. There's an identity that you were put on this planet to be, and you gotta claim that. That took me a while to really
excuse me for 1 second. We do need to wrap up, and just before we do that, I want to take a breather. I think this last part of the call has been so exciting. I want everybody to make sure they totally get up. We didn't cover precisely, but we did, how important it is to not get caught up. And we did talk a little bit about how to not get caught up. I want to make sure people understand that was in there. I do know that you have to go, and I do want to give you a chance to just, people can replay the episode, especially I want to say the last 10, 15 minutes of it has been particularly powerful, which I'm very grateful that you've gone over with us. And just what are the 3 key points that you want people to be thinking about as the podcast wraps up and as they go into their next thing? What do you feel should be the biggest takeaway from today? Just 3 points.
3 points are, you get to live in peace, you get to live in prosperity, and you get to live by being purpose driven. And as you do that, as you claim who you really are, that you get to thrive through any moment in time, and there's a purpose of what's guiding you, you're going to create it, right? The difference that separates the men from the boys and the women from the ladies, if you will, or the winners from the losers, right, is what's going on inside of you, inside of your mind. If you're using your mind in a way that serves you, you are going to thrive regardless of anything that is going on outside of you.
Thank you so much. And I just in case it twanged out, it's not your circumstances, it's not the families you were born to. It's what you choose to do with it, how you choose to interpret what's being presented. I just want to, I want to thank you, Michelle. Michelle and I we're in the process of finishing up a book. I've watched the tapes more than once of the two of us, and I really feel like we should make those available to people too. So pay attention. There is so much valuable stuff in there. I'm just so grateful to have you in my life, Michelle, and so grateful that you had the time to come and spend time with our audience today. So thank you so much. And we may have you back again soon. So.
Okay, well, wonderful, honey. Thank you so much, wrapping you in so much love and light. And all of the listeners, I always say, we're meant to be light, we're meant to be love, and we're meant to be limitless. So let's find ways to do that and create triple wins for the planet. Okay.
All right. And again, why don't you tell us again your web address?
Sure. There's two things. It's michellehumphrey.com/peace and prosperity. That'll give you 30 lessons to open up to more peace and prosperity in your life. And then I have a coaching team. And if anyone really feels like, oh my gosh, I need more peace and prosperity in my life, a breakthrough coaching session, michellehumphrey.com/call. And we will get you hooked up and support you. They're all free resources.
Very good. Thank you so much. And of course, you have our own peaceandharmonydownload.com, that program, and peaceandharmonydownload.com/resources. And create the life you want for yourself. Be who you want to be. Be the example of what you want to be for others. You can do it. The resources are available. Thank you again, Michelle, and have a great rest of the day, your life, every time. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon, gorgeous. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to another helpful, fun, and life-changing episode of Here We Come to Save the Day with David Adelson. To access the show notes and additional resources, go to herewecometosavetheday.com. If you've enjoyed the show and find it helpful and fun, please leave us a review and share with a friend. Tell us issues troubling you or questions you have. We're here to help you. That's what Here We Come to Save the Day is all about. Till next time.